So here we are. This is the start to the Jimmy Butler saga with the Miami Heat. Something that me personally, I've kind of seen the writings on the wall ever since Pat Riley did that press conference and was extremely vocal about a lot of different things tying into Jimmy. Number one, the availability. The fact that Jimmy has gotten older, he's missed a lot of time over the last few years. The team hasn't had a certain level of success. And then secondly, the little thing where he was talking mess to the Celtics, but he wasn't playing, and Pat Riley was real blunt about that. That kind of, to me, was signaling that we were headed to this. And knowing Jimmy Butler and the stage he's at in his career, where he's in his mid 30s, still a guy that can be a heavy contributor. And what a lot of times happens is guys at this age, at this point of their career, they're looking for that last big bag to convince somebody that, hey, I'm still worth $30+ million over the next 3 years. Try to get that last $100+ million deal and ride off into the sunset. So to me, this was in the workings. You kind of could know this was coming. I had said it a bunch of times on the podcast during the offseason or right after the playoffs or right after the Heat got eliminated and this stuff started to come out. And a lot of Miami Heat fans felt like I was just kind of making up stuff and this is like a far-fetched reality. But no, it's right here. And I'm not really mad at either side. I think this is a divorce or a separation that should have been in the workings for a while now. The Miami Heat have had some great years with Jimmy Butler in this era. The bubble run was magnificent. The play-in run where they played the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals was as good as it gets. You have to give them credit and respect. That was must-see TV. But with that being said, they just haven't been able to keep up with the rest of the Eastern Conference as far as getting better. And part of that is due to Pat Riley and his inability to make anything happen. I mean, a lot of the last few guys that have been available, the Miami Heat have had interest in and they've been tied to, but they just not have been able to get anything done. And the packages that they have as far as assets have been outbidded. You know what I mean? Damian Lillard goes to the Bucks, not the Miami Heat. Even when Bradley Beal was a name on the market before the Suns came in, Miami Heat was linked. And maybe it was a blessing in disguise, but it's still the lack of being able to get something done. And newsflash, Joel Embiid is not coming through that door. I don't believe Giannis Antetokounmpo is coming through that door. And outside of that, you guys weren't even able to be factors in any way during the offseason and free agency period. They really did nothing. They did nothing to really improve and enhance this team. And when you look at them, they're not a god-awful team by any means. You always respect the Miami Heat. They're always going to compete, and they're always going to play a certain level of high-quality basketball. But for what their expectation is and what they want to accomplish, this team is far from that. This is another year where they're going to be in the middle or towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And again, everybody else, for the most part, has been able to make significant moves to enhance their roster and enhance their chances of going on a postseason run to the NBA Finals. The Bucks went out and got a Damian Lillard. The Philadelphia 76ers got a Paul George. The Knicks went out and got Karl-Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby. The Pacers went out and got Pascal Siakam. Teams are going out and making moves. And even to a lesser degree, you see Orlando go out and get a KCP. That's what I'm saying. Like the Miami Heat sat in their hands all offseason and really made limited moves. And then before that, their big prime move was acquiring Terry Rozier. And it looked good. And what Terry Rozier was saying, and when he first got acquired, sounded good. But they're kind of the same team. And when all of these things kind of come to light, you have to be ready to go in a different direction. And I give the Miami Heat credit for that because I feel like they've always been a team who's made the right and proper pivot, right? When they got into the LeBron James era and things ain't go as much as they wanted to in a certain direction, they exited from LeBron. They didn't allow him to pigeonhole and take control of their franchise. They worked around for a few years. They got back into a competent state. Deion Waiters had some moments. D-Wade returned. You had Dragic having some moments. You were able to draft Bam and Hero, and you got back up, and you were able to add value and have a Jimmy Butler come back, and then you started that era. Like, they've always been really good at making sure that they don't have to go to ground level rebuild, but more so retool. They are like the perfect image of what it looks like to exit certain eras and retool properly. And I think this is the best case scenario for them. The only thing that I will say in that context is, what are people giving you for Jimmy Butler right now? He kind of has leverage, and I'm not mad at him either. if he wants to, if these reports are true, which we'll get into in a bit. But he has leverage because Jimmy Butler has a player option. So he has a $48 million contract for this year. But then next year's $50 million season, there's a player option. So if a team, hypothetically speaking, like the Detroit Pistons are like, man, we're desperate to get into the playoffs. We really want to show that our fan base that we're serious and committed and dedicated to taking this next step in our rebuild, and we want to get in through the play-in or the back end of the Eastern Conference. We're going to buy in on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, through his agent, can really speak to the Pistons and let it known, like, hey, I get y'all have interest, but if y'all trade for me, it's going to be a rental. I'm going to decline, and I'm going to test free agency just to let y'all know. That's where the leverage comes into play, because then that could scare off a team like Detroit. Or it won't matter. Maybe a Detroit or whoever, another one of those teams that are just desperate trying to make a move, maybe they won't care. Or maybe they can convince themselves that, hey, maybe we'll just bring him in and it'll be better than he expects. And, maybe he won't have that big of a market and we can convince him to stay. Teams do it all the time as well, where it's not the number one spot that a player wants to go, but they say they don't care and they try to convince him, and it goes two ways. He still leaves like he said he would. Kawhi Leonard, even when you win a championship. Or you can convince the guy to stay, and maybe it is a little bit better than he expected, and you have that as well. But because he does have that leverage, I think it makes the market a little bit more limited. And then also, the most glaring and obvious thing is that, again, he's $48 million for him on this contract for this year, and then next year is $50-something million. So it's like, how many teams around the league is sitting on that type of money to where they can absorb $48 million this year, $48.7 million this year, and then $52.4 million next year? It's not a lot of teams. Even when you look at the reported teams that we can talk about now, Shams reported initially that it was the Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Rockets, and the Golden State Warriors. And then a day or two ago, he reported the Phoenix Suns are another team that Jimmy Butler's agent, Bernie Lee, has indicated in league circles that the six-time All-Star is open to as a destination, while Miami listens to trade offers. Sources tell ESPN joining Dallas, Houston, and Golden State. And weirdly, this is the part of the Jimmy Butler saga that kind of confuses me, which I'm going to dive into. But his agent comes out and quotes in response to Shams' tweet on Twitter and says, all right, listen, I gave you a pass yesterday because I was busy. But if you don't stop putting my name on your complete and utter made-up bullshit because you know you normally aren't worth my time to acknowledge, continued, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm a middle-aged dad, but just know it would indicate severe dislike. World, all this is fabricated. I have never, and honestly, it wouldn't help me or the position I represent to do anything that's been reported by said journalist. And then the final and last tweet. Shams, this is your opportunity to say, my bad. I let ChatGPT write my tweets, and it went old school Peter Visasi. Shams Peter was a writer in the 90s. He puts in quotations, be a trendsetter. Invent the new, I was hacked. Carry on all. Thank you. And this part confuses me because he responded to like the added team, the Phoenix Suns. Usually with what he's saying and the energy of all that is being made and made up complete utter bullshit, and you know what I mean, he's never would do anything like this in his position and all. If it's this serious or this bad, why didn't you initially respond to the first report? It's not many times where something is falsely reported on somebody and they respond to the second minuscule version of it. You know what I mean? Like, usually if this is that much of cap, you come out and say, hey man, we never said anything like that. And in Jimmy Butler's interview at practice, he was kind of, saying he liked it. I like it. Like, I confusing mind games, probably a bunch of things that I don't know. Maybe who knows what's going on. But that kind of was weird to me, and I didn't know what sense to make of that. And then later, again, I seen Shams double down on what he said when he talked to Stephen A. Smith, saying what he reported was 100% fact. It's been vetted information. So he's standing on what he said. And he's calling fact. So, again, I don't know. Now, on the side of Jimmy Butler actually getting traded, I don't see a world where he can be a Dallas Maverick, y'all. What? Even if you take a Maxi Kleber $11 million salary, you tie it with PJ Watt, that's $26 million. You still got like $22 million you need to come up with. And to do that, you would have to give up somebody significant. And I just don't see a world where the Mavericks go that far to bring in Jimmy Butler. I also look at a team like Golden State. which isn't far-fetched. I think they have a more bigger chance than the Mavericks because you do have the 25 or so million dollar contract from Andrew Wiggins. That it creates a big portion of that. You then have the $12 million from DeAnthony Melton because he's hurt. But I also think on the flip side, the Miami Heat have to be intrigued with what they're getting. Do you want to commit long-term salary to Andrew Wiggins as a Jimmy Butler replacement? Is that what you want to do if you're Miami? Like, I don't know Miami's stance. I don't know what they want to do. I know they're not going to gut the whole roster and rebuild from ground zero. But, like, there is a world where they're like, hey, if Jimmy Butler don't want to be here, that's fine. He can decline his option and go into, free agency. But we would much rather have a young asset or a draft pick to be able to kind of lean on versus 3 years of Andrew Wiggins and his large salary. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why ultimately I say all that to say Houston to me is like the most favorable destination. If I was a betting man and I was told to put a bet on where Jimmy Butler is going to be traded, if he is going to be traded, my money would go on Houston. Houston has an abundance of young talent. Houston has contracts to make money match. Houston is a team that values Jimmy Butler. Houston is a team that I think Jimmy Butler would want to go to because it's the perfect situation. They have young talent. They're gritty. They're well coached. They defend. They're in the thick of the playoff race. And they don't have a legitimate star. They don't have a Steph Curry, a Luka, a Kyrie, a Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley. But they don't have that. So he could come in and still beat Jimmy Butler to a certain degree. And for me as a fan, these are my favorite situations for Jimmy Butler. When he has a chip on his shoulder and when he goes to a team that needs exactly what he brings. And he's able to kind of gather the troops, take a lot of these young guys under his wing, go out there and compete and just fulfill these guys with confidence. That's what he did in Miami. The young Bam, the young hero, you know what I mean? Young Duncan Robinson, like took all of those guys under his wing and kind of was like, match my energy. We're going to dog it out. And if you put Jimmy Butler on the Rockets and you have Tari Eason, a Min Thompson, a Fred VanVleet, like they're gonna be dogs out there coached by Ime Udoka. So I kind of love the idea of Jimmy Butler being a Houston Rocket. My only hesitation is what is the price the Miami Heat are going to be looking for. Because if you can get this trade done with a young player like Cam Whitmore, as much as I like Cam Whitmore, Houston, you got to wash your hands because I just don't see an opportunity there for him yet in your rotation. There's just so much influx of young talent. But now if they start to talk about Jalen Green, if they're starting to talk about, Jabari, you gotta pause and really think that one out. We talked about it briefly on the Numbers on the Board podcast. Kenny said he would give up Jabari. I kind of was like, ugh. I don't know. I know you're about to have to pay Jabari soon, but one thing I know is you're not going to have to pay him a max. So if there's a world where you can keep majority in the staples, but give up a Cam Whitmore with the contracts of Steven Adams and Jeff Green and maybe some type of draft pick, I like that for the Rockets. So you're able to keep Jabari. You still have Tari. You still have Amin. You know what I mean? You still have Reed Shepard. You know what I mean? You still have Dylan Brooks. You still have all of those guys, and you just, boom, throw Jimmy in the middle of that. And I'm even on Fanspo right now. And matter of fact, I'm going to allow y'all to see me on Fanspo. Just real quick for the sake of the video, instead of just talking about it loosely, you got Jimmy Butler here. We got the Rockets, right? So, like, Steven Adams, $12 million. Jeff Green, that gives you about, together, $20 million of that. And you probably... Man, maybe Dylan Brooks has to be in this deal. I don't know what the money looks like for them, but let's just see. Where's Cam Whitmore? Cam Whitmore, $3 million. Try to see if this work. So this fails. We'd have to cut $23 million from. It failed because I didn't put Jimmy Butler in the trade. So let's put Jimmy Butler on this side. Try trade. The Rockets are unable to complete this trade. The Rockets can only take back cut $24 million from the Rockets incoming trade value to make this trade. Okay, so boom, yeah, you would need probably Dylan Brooks, unfortunately, because boy, if you were able to keep Dylan Brooks, but at this point, who cares, right? Like, boom, Dylan Brooks, and of course, whatever the draft capital that you would want it to be. If you're Miami or whatever you're comfortable with, if you're Houston, they figure that out. You got 2 first-round picks this year. You got 1, 2, No, you got 1 second round pick, but then for 2026 you have 3 second round picks. So you could do something where you give them your own first round pick because you feel like you're going to be a playoff team, and you really feel like you're going to be a playoff team with the Miami Heat. And then in 2026, you don't need 3 second round picks. Hey man, here, I'll take 2 of these 3, and you call it a day. And yeah, like, boom, just shooting off the hip, right? And then you would look at this a situation like this, and now, yeah, your starting lineup is what? Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Jimmy Butler, Jabari. You're able to keep. You still have Sengun, and then that bench is Amin Thompson still. It's Tari Eason, Reed Shepard. You still have Jacqueline Dale, Jay Sean Tate. Like, you still are the team. You just gave up Dylan Brooks and a young player who hasn't played. You don't really have a role for him, an opportunity for him, and you give up 2 vets. But I really do like this trade, with Fred being the dog that he is, Amin and Tari being the dogs that they are. You now add Jimmy Butler to the mix. It's not a bad trade at all. So my heavy favorite would be the Houston Rockets. Obviously, Jimmy has ties out there, so it makes all of the sense in the world. Jimmy, to me, always looks good in red, by the way. Like, ever since he was a Bull, you just got it. Jimmy has to go to a team. Like, I can't picture Jimmy Butler with the Warriors. And we could even do the Warriors real quick since I'm here. But, like, that's not the Warriors. Gold and blue, like, I don't know. There's no red at all with the Warriors. So you would have to instantly give up Andrew Wiggins. And this is not the trade, but I just want to see how much you have to cut. $22 more million. $22 more million has to come from the Warriors. There's the 12. And let's just see Gary Payton. And you are still... Oh, DeAnthony Melton can't be traded till December 15th. Who cares? Maybe that works. And then the draft. What is the draft capital for the Warriors? They have their first round pick in 2025. They have it in 2026, So they got a decent amount of draft capital. Don't know how much they're willing to use, what's too much. I think at this point, with Jimmy Butler being on the last year of his deal potentially because of the player option, you give him a protected, top 10 protected first round pick or something like that. You know what I mean? And boom, or lottery protected, whatever you want to do. And yeah, you now would have a team with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler. It's the same team with just an added wing. So it's a wing upgrade. You're preferring to have Jimmy Butler over Andrew Wiggins. You know what I mean? For the deep playoff performances and things like that in the Western Conference. You still have Jonathan Kuminga. So yeah, maybe the Warriors aren't as far-fetched. It's just that, like I said earlier, does this move Pat Riley? Because, again, this is 26 over the next 3 years. Yeah, you can let him go. But you're committed to this, and this is essentially going to be the guy that kind of replaces Jimmy Butler. Not the worst idea because, it goes from $48 to $52 million all the way to 26, so it's not that bad. You're saving some money here, especially when these two guys come off the books. But, ultimately, we'll just have to wait and see. Again, I look around the league, I just don't see that many. Like, even the Hawks, who I think could be buyers. But, DeAndre Hunter, the way he's been playing, do you want to trade him? And if you do, does Pat Riley and co. want him for the next 3 years? Bogdanovich, 17 for the next 3 years. How much more money will we need the Hawks to give up? Oh, this actually works. So they don't have to match the money completely. They have a little bit of room to absorb a little $10 to $9 million difference. But they don't have picks, right? The Hawks don't have picks like that because of the trade for DeJounte. So I don't know how active they can wait, or could they? They have the Lakers pick with no protections. Sacramento protected. I don't know. Do you flip this? I have no idea. Let's see if they say you can't trade this pick. No, yeah. So something like that for the Hawks, but like the way the Hawks been playing, do they want to buy in on Jimmy Butler? I just know that they're desperate to compete as much as they can, knowing that the Spurs have their pick. But again, it just goes back to my point. It's a very limited market for Jimmy Butler right now. Second apron teams, teams with no money, teams that don't want to gut the roster for Jimmy. So again, all of this points back to the Houston Rockets. I'm very curious to hear y'all thoughts. I know some of y'all are probably drawing up trades. I've seen some of the Fanspo trades that are drawn up. I'm hoping none of y'all are the ones drawing up those trades because some of those are god awful. But definitely let me know your thoughts, especially my Miami Heat fan or anybody that's a fan of any of the rumored teams that Jimmy Butler could be interested in joining. Talk to me. As always, I will see y'all tomorrow. I'm out. Peace.